This video is for Chapter 4, Section 1 about congruent figures. So Chapter 4, we're going to start looking at congruent figures, primarily congruent triangles. We've heard the word congruent before. Segments are congruent, they have the same length, or angles are congruent, they have the same measure. Now we're going to get into shapes that are congruent, polygons. So we need to define congruent figures. Congruent seems to have a little bit of a different definition for different items. So, congruent figures have the same shape and the same size. It's two different things here, same shape, same size. The symbol for congruent is the equal sign with this little squiggle mark up top. What we haven't done before is to find that this is actually two symbols. The squiggle mark means similar or having the same shape. So that's when you have the same shape but not the same size. You could have a square that's really big or a square that's really small, but they're both squares. They are similar to each other in shape. Then there's the equal sign. Now, equal sign refers to numbers, so anything that can be measured is equal. Equal means same measurement or the same size. So here we are just in the beginning. Same shape, same size. Similar, same shape. Equal, same size. Now, we start here. What does it mean for congruent or for polygons to be congruent? Well, for polygons to be congruent, they must have all corresponding parts congruent. All is the key word here. All of them have to be congruent. So, I have this triangle ABC, and this triangle DEF. I claim they are congruent to each other. And it's very important that the letters are in corresponding order. So we look at the shape and we look at AB. AB is congruent to DE. AB, DE. Side AB is congruent to side DE. It's marked congruent. BC, EF. AC, DF. BC, EF. AC, DF. All three sides are congruent. Now, that's not all corresponding parts because there are angles also. Well, angle A is congruent to D. A, D. Corresponding order. The letter that comes first must match the other shape's letter that comes first. B comes second, E comes second. They are both the right angles. C comes last, F comes last. They are the angle marked with one congruent mark. A to D, B to E, E to F. Notice, we could make the decision without the picture. All we have to do is look at this. A to D, B to E, C to F. So if I write BC, I can look here and say BC matches EF. That's what corresponding parts means. Corresponding, same location. Now, I know it doesn't quite look like the same location in the picture, but the idea is these each have a right angle, E and B. Those are corresponding. Okay, so let's take a look at these two shapes here. Here is polygon A, B, C, D, E. A and B are right angles, C is 120, E is 130, D, I don't know. If polygon A, B, C, D, E is congruent to polygon F, G, H, I, J, can we answer the questions that are on the screen here? All right, polygon A, B, C, D, E is congruent to F, G, H, I, J. BC is congruent to what? Well, there are no congruent marks on here, but I'm told BC, right here, GH. Well, it must be GH. That is the corresponding order. I can go mark that. BC, GH. How about angle E? You should be thinking about this by now and know what it is. Angle E is congruent to, it's the last letter, so the last letter corresponding, J. Angle J. Finally, I have a question here that says, what is the measure of angle H? And what is it equal to? There are two answers to this question. I could say that the measure of angle H is equal to the measure of angle C, but I happen to know that the measure of angle C is 120. That means the measure of angle H is 120 degrees. That's what congruent polygons do for us. If we know two polygons are congruent, then all corresponding parts have to be congruent. Last question. What about finding the measure of angle I? Well, I would first say to myself, what does I correspond with? I corresponds with D, so I'll look at this picture. What is D? Uh-oh, I don't know what D is, but I know all four of the other angles, so I'm going to use a level 3 concept. Pentagon ABCDE, 5 minus 2 times 180, so n minus 2 times 180. 540 is the total sum of all these angles. And I know what four of them are: 90, 90, 120, 130, and angle D. So I'll add this. 180 plus 120 is 300. 430 plus the measure of angle D equals 540. Subtract 430 from both sides, and we get the measure of angle D is 110. And because D corresponds with I, if D is 110, then the measure of angle I is equal to 110. These three dots mean therefore. It's a mathematical symbol for the word therefore. Measure of angle D equals 110, therefore measure of angle I equals 110. Alright, so now we're going to take a look at a few other examples of what kind of work we would do with congruent polygons. Okay, so here are a few more examples of questions that we might be asked on this assignment. Are these figures congruent? Explain and name. So here's two triangles. We have to figure out, are they congruent? Well, first of all, we would say to ourselves, all the parts must be congruent. Let's check if they are. Well, we could say ln is congruent to p to n. We could say that mn is 4, and that's the same as on being 4, so those are congruent. And, well, lm is 3, and so that's congruent to p to o. So we've got all three sides congruent, but now we need all three angles to be congruent. Well, L is congruent to P. Angle M is congruent to angle O. And angle N, but I can't say angle N. This is tough. Angle N doesn't have any markings, and there are 4 different angles here. So the angle that I really want is angle MNL to be congruent to, let's get the corresponding order correct here. M to N to L would be O to N to P. You can go O, N, P. Is it true? Well, yes, vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent. Therefore, we do have all 3 angles. And now we can finalize this by giving it a name. The first triangle doesn't matter what we choose. I'll call it MLN. Our job is to then make sure that the second triangle gets the matching order. M matches O. L matches P. And N actually matches itself. So that works out nicely. That's naming. Okay? Now, the explain part is actually a little less. We don't have to write all the parts every time. Let's look at this one real fast. Are these two shapes similar to each other? I don't even have letters on here for us to name them. So let's take a look and see if we can figure this out and whether we need to name it. This has all 4 sides congruent. So does this. Okay. All corresponding sides congruent. Check. What about corresponding angles? Well, all 4 of these angles are congruent. That means they all have to be 90. and the other shape has angles that are 100 degrees and 80 degrees. The angles, we can put corresponding angles are not congruent. What's our conclusion? These are not congruent. Done. Not congruent. Well, now we have this problem here. We have to figure out, let's see. Well, I see that all corresponding sides are congruent. So we could say that. All corresponding sides congruent. Check. What about all corresponding angles congruent? Well, 90 to 90, 90 to 90 in between the 1 mark, perfect. But then I have a 60 here and a 120 there. Those aren't the same, but they also don't correspond. This one should go with this one. So maybe we have to find this angle real fast. The sum of these angles should be 360. If we have 360 and we subtract 60, and then subtract 90, and then subtract 90, let's find out what we have left. 120. That's 120 degrees. Okay, well if this is 120 degrees, that's 120 degrees. This one has to add up to 360, so that's going to be 60 as well. All corresponding angles congruent, check. Well, now we need a name. So A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D is congruent to, if I go here and I go E, F, G, H, I can't write E, F, G, H. A matches H. B matches G. C matches F. And D matches E. And it's important that we put together our own order there. All right. Our final example is written here. It leads us to our final theorem for this work, and you guys will be ready to do your own assignment. In this triangle here, I'm claiming that they are congruent. All the corresponding sides are congruent. 3 to 3, 4 to 4, 5 to 5. Shortest to shortest, medium to medium, long to long. All corresponding sides congruent. All the corresponding angles are congruent. Question mark. Is this true? Right angle, right angle. All right angles are congruent. X degrees, X degrees. Well, X is the same as itself, so those should be congruent. So the question is angle C equal to angle D? I have here that angle C should equal 180 degrees minus 90 minus X. Well, if I wanted to find angle D, I would say that it's 180 for the whole triangle minus 90 minus X. So C equals 180 minus 90 minus X. D equals 180 minus 90 minus X. So I can make the conclusion that C equals D. So this actually is the proof of a theorem that says if two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then the third angle must be congruent. Change this number to a 60. If we have 90, 90, 60, 60, it is a guarantee that 30 degrees left, 30 degrees left. If two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then the corresponding third angles are congruent. This is an important theorem for a few lessons from now. That's it for Chapter 4, Section 1. You are now ready to do the assignment from that section.